Hello and welcome to the UFOcast as Captain Scarlet, episode 18, and this week we're looking at Model Spy. So last week, going from an episode with which I was very familiar, we go to an episode that, with the exception of the reuse of the vanishing car, I remembered very little about. I suppose other than the significance of the Mystrons taking over some women, because this is the first time Mystron agents have been women as opposed to men. Although you can say that Captain Scarlet makes some strides forward in terms of having the Angels as lead characters, pretty much all the guest puppets, with the exception of these couple, are men. It's a very male-dominated show in that regard. So interesting for them to take on an idea where the Mystron agents are women, although they are doing something that is very stereotypical. I mean, I say that, though we don't actually see anybody modelling any clothes, apart from right at the end, when Verdun gives the dresses to Symphony and Destiny. I mean, I'll straight off the bat, it's all right, this episode. It contains the usual stuff. Let's have the Mystrons blow something up and take some people over. It has your nice SPV chase with, let's hide an SPV in a casino. It has some peril. I suppose the main issue with it is that the Mystron threat is to kill Verdun, and in the first half of the episode they try and do that by blowing up the boat, which doesn't succeed. And then in the second half of the episode they kidnap him. I suppose there's the intrigue of, like, they're trying to get him to the island, and then when they're stopped by a roadblock they just chuck him out of the car and vanish. So it's just a little bit frustrating plot-wise, because it's never really clear what the Mystrons are after. And their threat seems somewhat hollow when, again, they could have killed him quite easily at various points, but don't. And then you have this whole thing of, well, actually they're going to kidnap him, and they give up really easily at the end. So a bit of a whimper, really. What it does have going for it, as I've said, is that it has roles for Destiny and Symphony outside of flying around their aircraft and shooting stuff down, which obviously is great fun. But it's nice to see them doing something different and being given the responsibility of going on this mission. Although Scarlet and Blue do most of the work, so they're still in the shadow of them. I'm struggling to say any more about this episode. Oh, I suppose it continues Jerry Anderson's, I don't want to say obsession, but the idea that, like, monorails of some kind are going to be the transport of the future, which is great. I mean, obviously, also, as with all technology in the Anderson-verse, prone to blowing up. Or, well, I mean, I don't think I'm going to include this as a new Mystron power, because there's a whole kind of umbrella of the Mystrons influence stuff, and it breaks, which we've already covered plenty of times in previous episodes. So derailing a monorail is not something new. But obviously, again, we have a method of transport that it seems to be incredibly vulnerable to going off the rails. And obviously, monorails have not really taken off outside of a few small places in the world and at airports and things like that. This is not the train travel of the future. Again, I suppose we have the double whammy of Captain Scarlet rarely has his kind of wave of sickness when he's in the presence of Mystron agents. But what I did like, particularly after my complaint last week, is that, again, the plot took pains to reveal why the Mystron detector wasn't in use. So, like, I'm gonna flag that up when it's a positive thing. Yes, we had one. It went down with the boat. I suppose you do have the question of, well, why didn't they use it before? But anyway, I'm gonna give them points for at least trying in the script to explain that one away. And I suppose, again, points for kind of going, well, what are the limits of the format? How many different stories can we tell? And at least this is an attempt to go, let's do something a bit different, even if the execution is a bit below par. And now it's time for this week's Spectrum Agent Report from Maynard in Australia.
Captain Aubergine here, reporting from Sydney, Australia. Lighten up, Spectrum fans, because this episode's going to be a lot of fun as we go on the French Riviera and Captain Scarlet goes into the whole world of high fashion. But it gets very dark, like every other episode of Captain Scarlet usually does. In this episode, Model Spy, the Mystrons plan to kill a famous fashion designer, Andre Verdun. And in doing so, making the fashion community the world over and Madonna livid at the Mysterons. so they can kiss goodbye to getting into any decent nightclub ever again. Sorry, no mistrons allowed.
But my name's on the door.
Go on, mate, take your googly eyes and go somewhere else. Oh, and there's great music in this too. Specially recorded tracks for this one, Models on a Train and Cocktail Time. And as the models are complaining, it is very tiring being a fashion model, but things get a lot worse when the mistrons put their googly eyes over the train and, oh, look out, bang! And we get the scene of two models being killed in a vicious train wreck, which of course won't upset the kids because 1967. And of course the mistrons give away the plan at the beginning of every show. Yeah, we're going to kill that fashion guy. Also, we get to hear the real names of Captain Scarlet and Captain Blue. Captain Scarlet, Paul Metcalf, and Captain Blue, Adam Svensson. Is he Swedish or Norwegian? Well, they go undercover with Destiny Angel and Symphony Angel. Gabrielle and Helga, voiced by Sylvia Anderson herself and Liz Morgan as Helga. But I got to say, it's a pretty outrageous French accent there, and Verdane himself has the outrageous French accent.
I am so glad to see you.
It's like if a fashion designer had the accent of the French taunter from Monty Python.
I don't want to talk to you no more.
Fashion-wise, there's a lot of velour going on here, and a lot of ruffle. A lot of velour, a lot of ruffle. Big in 67. Captain Blue is a bit dismissive of the entire fashion industry.
Verdane doesn't appear of particular importance to anyone, least of all the Misterons.
No one would believe that a man that runs a woman's fashion house would be a spy. I don't know. If you've seen any episodes of Hello, Hello, it's pretty obvious that Verdane runs the Europe Area Intelligence Network. And just looking at the way they've dressed with their caps on in these scenes, is it possible that the Spectrum uniform caps have a clear brim? From above, the faces of the Spectrum agents are better lit, because when they've got caps on, casts a shadow. There are reports have come into Spectrum that Captain Black has been seen in Europe. Well, that narrows it down. Well, he's pretty easy to spot. He's the unshaven guy. And just a moment to think about Lieutenant Green. How come Lieutenant Green never gets a hat? I don't think you've ever seen him with a hat on.
Yes, he does, in Avalanche. Anyway, back to Maynard.
Do the other Spectrum agents nick his hat and throw it over the telegraph pole wires like sandshoes? Oh, now we've got some real fashion here. Got the Harlequin pattern chartreuse and burnt orange pantsuit. That pantsuit gives off that whole Hillary Clinton casual look. As we know, Captain Scarlet's quite famous for going funny in his water whenever he's around Misterons, but he's really close to two of them there, and no, his water doesn't go funny even once. But they do get invited out on the fabulous motor yacht, and we are treated to Cocktail Time, the track that was specially recorded for this episode. And it's the groovy sound of 2068, Jazz Flute. Just a few safety engineering tips on Verdane's 2068 luxury motor yacht. Fuel release valve. Don't put it directly over the hot manifold of the engine. Why would you ever want to release flammable fuel near the hot manifold? And complete lack of smoke detectors in the engine compartment in 2068. Obviously a budgetary thing, I'm sure. That's a pretty major engineering fashion faux pas right there, people. Oh, and Captain Scarlet takes the boat out to sea and it goes boom. Was Captain Scarlet killed there and he came back, or did he have a lucky escape? It's sort of hinted at in the story that he might have been a bit killed there and come back, but you know what he's like? He's pretty cavalier with his safety. Oh, and then we're treated to some super marination dressing gowns. I imagine Sylvia Anderson designed. And because of the marination, you can't really show their knees or their full legs or anything like that. So I hope the House of Verdane doesn't have any swimsuits in their parade, or those marionettes are in trouble. Interesting that the Misteron detector sank with Verdane's motor yacht. Maybe if someone had turned it on when everybody was getting on board, maybe this would have been a bit of a shorter episode. How about Captain Scarlet? Nothing funny in his water? No? Yet why didn't they turn the Misteron detector? Are they trying to save batteries? Does it belong to someone else and they worry about wearing it out? Hang on a minute. There's a report that Captain Black has been seen in Monte Carlo. Well, everybody knows that the Misterons are mad for Keno.
I was one number away from winning the meat tray.
Oh, and check out the Dickies at the cocktail party. Multicoloured Dickies, people. This is fancy. This is a rare crowd scene for Super Marination. There's over a dozen marionettes at this party. Look at them all crammed in there. You don't see many scenes like this. Now, of course, they're worried about Verdane here. They want to keep a track on him. So at the cocktail party, Captain Scarlet drugs Verdane's drink. It's a homing drug, a bit like an edible or LSD or something. You put that in someone's drink and they're pretty easy to find or spot in a crowd, let me tell you. Woohoo! There's real hands used at multiple times during this episode, particularly with the drugging and the poking and looking around in the light switch. Captain Black turns up outside Verdane's hotel window. Oh, by the way, Captain Black's fashion there. Take a look at him there. Looks a bit like an original member of Dexy's Midnight Runners with that longshoreman look. And here's an example of Captain Scarlet not being the brightest colour in the spectrum rainbow by not being suspicious of the model with her thumb suspiciously hovering over the room's light switch. Looks at her, looks back at the window, looks at her. Oh, the lights go out.
I can't see a thing.
And Andre Verdane is shot with a drugged dart, which isn't really as unusual as you'd expect at one of these fashion parties. It's the person who doesn't get the dart that complains. And this is also one of the rare cases where they capture a Mysteron. The model with the light switch, she's there. They could capture her. You see, Captain Scarlet rumbles Gabrielle, knowing that she didn't fly in because it was fog-bound. Aha, she must have been googly-eyed Mysteron. But there's something about the outrageous French accent when she says, "You have lost, Earthman," in the French accent. Just doesn't quite seem as menacing as usual.
You've lost.
No, Earthman. It is you who have lost. They will get clean away.
So we don't know exactly why the Mysterons have kidnapped Verdane, but Captain Scarlet goes after them in a fast red car. And the Angels go off to get a helicopter. Captain Blue goes off to get the Spectrum pursuit vehicle. Who's looking after the Mysteron agent they captured? Gabrielle. You sit here, don't move or you're in so much trouble. Nice bit of spycraft here as Captain Blue gets the SPV that's hidden in a casino. Mind you, we had to play 3 rounds of Keno to get it out. And Captain Black really wants to keep Verdane alive. And also, what's happened here with Captain Scarlet? Did he have a crash again?
He's crashed.
Good.
Did he actually just get killed then in the red car? His refractory period after dying is pretty impressive. He's up and about in no time. Also, this is probably the most dialogue I've seen Captain Black have when he's talking to Helga. He has a lot to say, but we still don't know why they want him alive, and we still have no idea what their plan is. They notify the French police and they pull the old French police roadblock trick on Captain Black and the crew.
Look, the exit's blocked.
Come out of the car with your hands up.
So what do? They throw Verdane out of the car in a way that it seems they didn't really want to kill him, because they could have done that while he was in the car. And then they do the old, don't look now, we've just teleported ourselves and the car out of here. And the Mysterons seem to disappear with the same noise as the TARDIS, giving Verdane a bit of existential angst on witnessing the car and the Mysterons just disappear out of there. Also witnessed by the French police, which is not commented upon at all. Look, it's a French holiday resort. The French police probably see that sort of thing all the time. If the Mysterons can just teleport themselves out of places, why don't they do it more often? And if they could, why didn't they take Verdane with them? Why are they even using a car at all? And of course, Verdane's just tripping balls after seeing this.
Verdane, are you all right?
I saw it with my own eyes. It vanished. The saloon just vanished into thin air.
But some silver-tongued hand-waving from Captain Scarlet resolves everything and gets us out of this.
The Mysterons have powers we cannot hope to understand. Let's get back to the hotel.
So Captain Blue has a pretty okay episode. The Angels get fabulous gowns at the end of the episode. And Captain Scarlet got killed twice, probably. And, oh no, he's not bitter.
Yes, I'm all right.
Just a few questions here. Tony Barwick, the script editor. Gabrielle, the Mysteron agent. What happened to her? Did they send her downstairs to play Keno? Did she actually win that meat tray? And what were they actually going to do with Verdane? They could have killed him 2 or 3 times over. And where were they going to take him to? And what were they going to do with him when they got him there? They almost captured a Mysteron agent. Did she teleport herself out? Did she give them a gown as a bribe? Oh no, there's a lot of unanswered questions in this one, but it's a fairly fabulous episode fashion-wise. And there is that cool music, Cocktail Time. 2068, the sound of jazz flute. I love Captain Scarlet. It's dark, but it's still fun. And if you think this is dark, take a look at Joe 90 sometime. Captain Aubergine, Spectrum, Sydney, Australia, signing off. And remember, there's nothing suspicious about hovering your finger over a light switch at a cocktail party.
If you'd like to be a Spectrum agent in a future week, please visit ufocast.co.uk/captain to sign up for one of the remaining slots. Where does this feature in the episode order? Well, 14 on the DVD order, 21 on the VHS, 18 obviously as we're doing it, so pretty much in the second half. Well, I suppose Not quite in the second half of the run if you're watching on DVD, but a similar place in the overall order. As I say, we're not going to go for any new Mistron powers. We've seen the whole vanishing thing happen before. I suppose this is notable for the fact that all the Mistrons are still at large at the end of the story. Quite what happens to Gabrielle, we're left to speculate, but she's not shown being killed, and obviously Helga and Captain Black escape by vanishing. So we have 2 Mistron models still at large at the end of this episode, and I feel that would have been a great loose end to follow up at some point. I don't think it is. I know certainly that the Gabrielle puppet is used as a Mistron agent again, in the place of Angels, I think, at least. But she's not playing the same character, as far as I'm aware. That could be my faulty memory playing up, but I'm pretty sure that these loose ends are not sadly tied up. And why the Mistrons are trying to get Verdun to the island, again, a loose end that isn't tied up. But obviously we will add Helga and Gabrielle to the Mistron gallery on the website, so head over to ufocast.co.uk to have a look at that. So next week, I'm excited for this. We have the Crater 101, followed by Dangerous Rendezvous over the next couple of weeks, following up from Lunaville 7, rounding out that trilogy of episodes. My recollection is that Crater 101 is a particularly good episode, so join me next week where we will talk about that.